All right, I'm excited to be here with Steven Thiel today. We are going to be talking a little bit about RevOps consulting and how that builds the foundation for enterprise growth. So, Steven, let's start off with, as we always joke, everyone has a different definition of RevOps in general. So, let's translate that over to RevOps consulting. What do you mean when you say RevOps consulting?
Yeah, when I say RevOps consulting, like we're not just there to jump right into the work. Like we want to consult and build the foundation, build the process, build the data architecture so that long term, the RevOps is set up to succeed. We often see companies want to dive right into like actual work or implementing technology. But when you do that without the consulting component, you're probably going to end up in the same spot that you are when you started that project, and no one's going to be happy about it.
So when does a company reach out to somebody like Attack Interactive? They've reached some sort of tipping point where they have to go, okay, we need help with our RevOps.
Yeah, we see a couple different use cases. Typically, there are it could be like a crisis point where marketing is complaining that sales isn't following up on our leads. Sales could be claiming the marketing needs a poor quality, and then customer success ends up could be feeling blindsided by promises that might be made during the sales process, and then leadership as a whole starts to receive contradictory reports from each of these departments, and that's when they start doing a little bit of research, and they've got a very specific pain point that they're looking to solve.
Is that pain point typically something to do with alignment?
I'd say 9 times out of 10 has to do with alignment.
Yeah. The eternal struggle. All right. So I know one of the things we always talk about here is how RevOps is so much more than the technology, and you have to really understand, adopt, and engage in the process just in general before the technology can amplify what that is. So how would you say the best way for us to start working with a customer and really get the process drawn out before we even bring it into something like HubSpot or Salesforce?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we typically start with more customer journey mapping, and that'll involve bringing, everyone needs to have a seat at the table there. We need marketing, we need sales, we need customer success because the customer journey touches all of those different departments, and so we'll try to document, what is that ideal path from the first marketing touch to customer success, being set up for success and being able to grow and expand that account. So like we'll start at each stage, we'll define entry criteria, exit criteria. What are the activities and metrics that indicate success? Once we have all of that lined out and we have a nice clean lucid chart of the customer journey, then we can start looking at the technology needs and seeing what tech is going to be best suited to implement that based on that company.
Okay. Well, so how do you help all those departments with alignment when you're looking at sales has things they want, marketing has things they want, success has stuff they want. How do you work within there and those different needs to to help each department get what they want while serving the overall goal, which is to increase revenue?
I think that's really where the RevOps consulting piece comes in. And for us, that most effective approach typically ends up being shared definitions. Everyone needs to agree, what constitutes an MQL, what constitutes an SQL, so on and so forth. We can't have any single department that is dictating that decision, but it needs to be more of a collaborative approach between marketing, sales, and customer success. And once we have that, alignment, it makes it, we want to make sure marketing is incentivized, not just on generating MQLs. Marketing should be incentivized on, lead volume, sales on new business, customer success and retention. We don't want to have that, structural conflicts in place. So when we have more shared metrics and everyone is looking at, how does marketing influence the pipeline? What are onboarding rates? What does that expansion look like for customer success? And that is identified. And we'll use a lucid chart and we'll map out MQL, SQL. We'll have very clearly on there what are the definitions for it. What activities are we doing that are driving MQLs, driving SQLs, and going as far as labeling different forms on the website, different forms of marketing activity where sales is jumping in. Are they handling all leads, or are they only handling leads once they hit that SQL status, depending on lead volume for a company? But that's where we try to help consult and guide based on what we know works for other companies in similar industries, and document. And once it's documented and everyone aligns on it, it makes it much easier to implement and then report on moving forward.
Gotcha. So I want to touch on something you were talking about before, which is data architecture and its role in this alignment, because I feel like, if you're a startup and you're about to get, you know, get moving, about to ramp up, it's easy to architect how you want all these things to play together. But typically that's not who we're talking to. We're talking to established companies that have an established sales department, an established marketing department, established customer success department, and they are all looking at different KPIs. And how do you, align all of the data when, I mean, even the technology doesn't even use the same nomenclature, right? If sales is using Salesforce and marketing is using HubSpot, we're having to connect different properties with different names. So how do you architect data when things are so messy across departments and even across different technologies?
Yeah, it definitely gets tricky, especially with more established companies where there is already some sort of CRM or marketing automation in place. But we'll typically start with an audit, and we're going to look at contact and account data quality. We're going to look at how opportunities and pipelines are structured. And this really comes into play again in that HubSpot Salesforce environment where there is different nomenclature. If multiple tools are being used, if marketing is using one tool, sales is using another, sometimes even customer success is using another, we need to look at what's currently integrated right there. How is that data passing back and forth? And then the big one is reporting infrastructure, because to your point, often marketing might have their reports in HubSpot or Marketo or whatever marketing automation tool they're using. Sales might have theirs in Salesforce or another tool. Customer success could be using Zendesk, and then they all have a different reporting infrastructure. So oftentimes when it's these bigger, more established companies, rather than attempting a complete overhaul, which sometimes is warranted, but not all companies have the appetite for that, or the timeline to allow for that. We might instead focus on what elements are causing the most significant revenue impact right now, which typically then comes down to like different naming conventions. How is data structured? What do the integrations look like? We can typically step by step start to fix the data architecture a little bit and get the system speaking better. And ideally, if multiple tools are being used, like, we're going to pick a source of truth. um, well, I'm sure marketing, might want to live in HubSpot, sales might want to live in Salesforce. We still need one system needs to be the source of truth. That needs to be where we're focusing on cleaning that data, because then typically that data is passing into all the other systems. So once we have one source of truth, it makes it much easier to build shared reporting that every department and up to leadership um, has eyes on.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's an important part, right? Because if you have that single source of truth, then at that point you have established KPIs and you're all even if you're not all in the same ecosystem, you're all bound to the same reports, right? And so, with the overall goal being to increase revenue, increase profit, all of that good stuff, you want to make sure that you have the technology that's capturing how that's done across departments to be able to get that alignment. Because, if somebody's investing, whether it's the consulting or the implementation of any sort of RevOps work, they are going to be looking for an ROI. So, are there any KPIs that we should be thinking about beyond just your normal your let's call it your simpleton revenue profit type numbers?
Yeah, I mean, there are typically, so this could depend whether we're looking at, B2C, B2B, but there are often more rev ops focused KPIs that we're going to try to report on. And those again could differ, but we want to, there's typically CAC, customer acquisition cost, customer lifetime value, lead conversion rate, customer churn rate. So we want to look at it more from a full cycle. We all want shared KPIs. Marketing, sales, customer success are still often going to have their own that they're monitoring. But obviously everything, for everything from the lead gen side to to the sales side, all then starts tying into MRR, ARR, NRR, and a lot of that gets, we're going to look at sales cycle, like revenue growth rate. So we're still going to have our core KPIs that we want each team to be focusing on, but they also have to then feed into a RevOps dashboard, and having a shared RevOps dashboard where marketing can see like what is their CAC, what is the sales life cycle length, what is our drop off from like MQL to SQL to opportunity. Once we have a shared RevOps dashboard, I often find that the teams then get energized by that and they start working together, and having that more shared RevOps dashboard then removes kind of like, I've spoken about in the past, the blame game that can kind of come with marketing. We never want to have anyone, we don't want to empower departments to use marketing in a he said, she said, like we want everyone to have a shared visibility into that, and having that more cohesive shared RevOps dashboard, often we find energizes the teams and really helps build that alignment up long term.
And there we go. That's how you get go from chaos to clarity with a little support from a RevOps team like your friends here at Attack Interactive. Awesome. Thank you so much, Steven. I appreciate it. That's it for today. If you like what you see, give us a thumbs up and make sure you hit subscribe so you can see our latest videos as soon as they drop. We really appreciate you watching. See you next time.